I just started.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so, and I think everyone has a copy of the agenda, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. Apologize that we're a few minutes behind. As you can tell, Delegate Feldmark is in another meeting right now. She has a voting session for her subcommittee to move the relief bill. So she's going to be joining us hopefully a little bit later. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know other members too have had some conflicts with this time. Obviously, as it gets further into session, it's more challenging to schedule these delegation meetings. And as a result, sometimes we are not able to have full attendance as much as we would like. So I think other members will be joining as soon as they can. So we can proceed with the agenda. I think at the top of the agenda are legislative bond initiatives. There are, it looks like about 9 of them, 9 or 10 of them remaining. Let me see here. We actually don't have a quorum of the Senate delegation. So, and I know Senator Hester should be joining us shortly. So I guess if we don't have that quorum, we can pause on that vote for now and move on to the next items on the agenda and hopefully come back to those later. So let's go to the bills held over. The first bill there is Howard County 2-21, which we've had several discussions on. This is Class A alcoholic beverage licenses. And I see that Bonnie, I think, has been let in the waiting room. Is that right? I'll go ahead and admit Mr. Milani in case we have any questions. And I think there was a discussion in the last meeting of potentially some amendments. I think we want to move forward with a motion at least so we can start discussing this bill. So I entertain a motion.
Move approval of the bill, but didn't we amend it?
Abby, was there an amendment already attached to this?
Yeah, there are 2 that haven't been voted on yet.
Okay, so we need to start with the amendments. Delegate Hill, could you mute yourself? Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to move the bill and to be able to consider the amendments. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Delegate Novotny. So we can open up discussion. I think there are 2 amendments that are on the table for discussion at this point, and we haven't voted on them yet. Is that correct, Abby?
Yes, 2 amendments are on the table. We haven't voted.
Okay. Maybe you can you refresh our memory what the 2 amendments are? Or maybe council can. Mr. Moriarty, can you refresh our memory what the 2 amendments are?
Sure, and one amendment that we discussed in relation to how many Class A licenses could be permitted per election district, and to change it so that regardless of population, the board could issue more up to 6 Class A licenses in any election district. And then if they wanted to issue more than 6 Class A licenses in a particular election district, it could only be done so that the total number of Class A licenses did not exceed 1 for every 4,000 residents of that district. Do you need me to repeat that or explain any of it? There's a lot of numbers involved.
No, that's helpful. Questions from I see Delegate Terraza has a question. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure we're being clear here, because there were amendments last week and then we took those back. And then there were new amendments drafted. So Like, I just want to make sure that we're clear on which amendments we're talking about. Because
Yeah, and
the
that's,
amendments from last week were, I thought, after Delegate Ebersol went through them, we decided that that needed to be redrafted. It looks like Senator Hester worked on new amendments, and I have questions about those amendments, but I want to make sure we're discussing the same amendments. We're not discussing the amendments that we were talking about last week.
yeah, no, you're exactly right. I wanted to just bring us up to speed on what was discussed last week, and then we could introduce the new amendments. Although I don't know I don't see Senator Hester here to be able to speak to her amendments or any revised amendments. But I think Ms. Murray already brought us up to speed on the prior amendments that were introduced. And I know there were some reasons why we didn't move forward with those. But any other amendments that folks want to bring forward on this bill for consideration? No.
Wait,
Yeah, go ahead, Delegate Traza.
don't we have two in front of us? Are we not voting on two amendments today?
We can, if somebody wants to motion to move those amendments.
Mr. Chair,
You guys hear me now?
I think there's some doubt because we weren't sure the amendments were doing what we thought they were last week. That are these
Right.
newly written amendments that do what we thought they were supposed to do last week?
I don't think they're newly written amendments. No,
Yes.
entertaining a motion for.
Okay, Doris says, yeah, they are.
They are. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
All
just
right.
clarifying, we have Senator Gazzoni's amendment and Senator Hester's amendment on the table.
Okay. And they are revised from last week then. Mr. Moriarty, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So since we have Senator Gazzoni on, maybe we can start with that amendment.
Sure.
Senator, do you want to?
I think this is just a timing thing to make sure that people who are already in the process don't get affected by it.
Delegate Terraza?
So I think the timing piece makes sense. I just want to make sure that, oh no. Hello?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, something happened with my computer. Sorry, I think the timing piece makes sense, but I want to make sure sorry, I'm having major trouble here. So what I want to make sure is that what happens to those licenses so if somebody gets licenses in the interim, that like they have something in the interim that's in the way, that's on the way, does that create extra licenses or does that take away licenses that are on that list? I may not have asked that.
I'm not even sure what you're asking.
Okay, so let's say there's 6 licenses in an area and there's one that's grandfathered in. Are there 6 licenses now or 5?
There are however many there are.
Okay, so
Maybe I'm not-
on the chart, okay, so if on the chart there are 6 today.
Unfortunately, I don't have the chart in front of me, but maybe
Yeah, I don't have the chart in front of me either, which
Jack, you have an answer to this?
you're muted. Okay.
Delegate,
Question.
what
Yeah.
was covering was there is currently a license that is at the Court of Appeals. There's a pending decision, and in fairness, Senator Gazzoni had said we want to make sure that if that's granted, that they still get it, and everybody agrees that they had applied for it. So there's one available in that district either way, but we just want to just make sure that if there wasn't one, that something that went to court wouldn't be up against the chart. So that's just if you applied for it and it was granted, but it hasn't been issued yet, you would still get it. Even if it took you over the number, you would still get it.
Okay, I completely understand the fairness issue of if it's in their works. That makes complete sense to me. But what I don't understand is, doesn't that then add, like, let's say there's 6 in a district and this is in that district, then there are now 7 in that district.
If that were the case, it would, but the one that's being looked at, there is actually a few licenses left. This was just to make sure that this was actually devised prior to the liquor board sending us those locations and coming up with a chart. So that was done early on in case it would have knocked them out. And that's the only instance that I'm aware of. And in all fairness, it probably doesn't really matter because they're available in that district anyway, unless this case were to drag out for a long, long time. And I don't think that's the case. I think this will be resolved within the next month.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malani. I really appreciate it, but I'm still not understanding. If I don't know if somebody can bring up the chart or I'm trying to find the chart, but are we adding a license to the county? I'm fine with grandfathering people in. That makes a lot of sense to me. I just want to make sure we're not adding licenses,
No,
which it sounds like we are. No?
no, it would be if anything was pending, anything that was pending at the time, and this was not issued, you approve a license, but then there's certain things that have to happen in order to issue a license. In this case, there's a court challenge to the license. So even though it's been issued through or been approved by the board, until it goes through the courts, they won't actually issue it. So all it does is say, hey, you had it going in and you still have it at the end of your court if the courts rule in your favor.
So that would reduce the number in that district. Can Mr. Moriarty answer that question? Would that reduce the number in that district by 1 then?
Mm-mm.
You repeat that question, pardon me, I'm having some connection issues here. You can kind of.
So if there were, just say 6 in that district now and 1 got grandfathered in, are there still 6 in that district, or does that take away from the 1 in that district? I just want to make sure, all I'm trying to make sure is that we're not creating extra licenses in Howard County.
We're not, I can guarantee you, Delegate, we are not at all.
Okay, if Senator Gazzoni knows the answer because he's shaking his head, if we're not, then we're not.
Not.
Okay. That's a fine answer. I was just trying to get a straight answer on that piece. Thank you.
Any other?
I know
other-
this has been complicated, but I mean, the simple thing is there aren't any, we have a certain number of licenses. We don't need more licenses. And quite frankly, all we're really trying to do is make sure that they're not concentrated, quite frankly, along the Route 1 corridor where, we don't want, I've worked for decades, as all of you know, to upgrade the Route 1 corridor. And it isn't it's a huge challenge, right? Some people will say, well, why are we messing around with free market stuff? Well, free market doesn't exactly exist in our world anyway. The reality is when you have zoning, when you have
Last night.
you don't have a free market. So either you like the idea, you don't, but that's where we are. This is about, from my perspective, what will ultimately be good for the county in a particular part of the county. And that's all there is to it.
To clarify, I absolutely agree, Senator Gazzoni. After talking with Mr. Malani, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago. I can't remember how many it was. I absolutely agree, and I appreciate the purpose, and I appreciate the bill, and I agree with it completely. And I not only like the idea, but I think it accomplishes that. I just want to make sure we're not adding licenses to the county is all. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for doing this.
Okay. Senator Hester, did you want to say something, or were you just trying to unmute yourself?
I wanted to say something several minutes ago, and that was just to
Okay.
make sure you guys are talking about the right amendment. the amendment that I worked on with Delegate Terraza, and we sent it over to Senator Gazzoni, just conforms with the original intent of the amendment that I wished to offer last week, which was to say that in an election district, the board may issue up to 6 licenses without changing anything else in the bill.
Okay. So, so we have an amendment on the table. Do we have a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable.
This is on the amendment that Senator Gazzoni just introduced. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any opposition to this amendment? Or are we all, can we be all marked in favor of this amendment? Okay. All right. So we'll spare the roll call. Abby, if you can mark that down as unanimous.
Don't we need to take a vote? Even by consensus? Voice vote?
Sure. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Anyone opposed? Speak up now. All right. Abby, if you can mark that as unanimous. Any other amendments?
Senator Lamb, I'm sorry, I'm still not sure if we have moved or voted on the amendment that I offered.
We have not. So if you want to go ahead and I know you kind of already introduced your amendment, or you can, you know, put it on the table for consideration and motion that you want to approve of it.
Okay, I'd like to put the amendment that I offered yesterday on the table and for discussion and approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you.
Do the two amendments conflict?
No.
Any further discussion on Senator Hester's amendment?
Just refresh my memory what this does.
Senator Hester, can you speak to it again?
Sure. This amendment simply states that the liquor board may issue up to 6 licenses, regardless of population in an election district. And this would only affect the 2 election districts that are currently would be capped at 3, I believe, 3 or 4 licenses. It does not do anything to the eastern side of the county. It just allows for potential economic growth on the western side of the county.
Delegate Terraza?
So, and I appreciate your work on this, Senator Hester, and your concerns about the western part of the county. What I want to clarify is last week, I understood, I know that you fixed the piece that Delegate Ebersol was talking about, and that the up to is supposed to make sure that it doesn't have to be that many. But what I want to understand, and I don't know if Mr. Moriarty can tell us this, or Mr. Milani, or who, or Senator Hester, but doesn't this then add up to 6 licenses in the county? Because my understanding last week was that the amendment could add up to, or it definitely did last week. This way it could add up to 5 or 6 additional licenses to the county, which is what my concern is. I don't have a concern about making sure that we get the licenses where you're interested in having them. And I applaud Senator Gazzoni's interest in having them not concentrated, especially on the Route 1 corridor, where that has been a concern that I know he worked on before I was on the county council, which was now a long while ago. But I don't want to be adding liquor licenses to the county. and this concerns me because I feel like this is adding up to 6 licenses to the county, 3 in District 5 and 3 in District 4 and 3 in District 3. Election district, to be clear, not council district.
I would have to defer to Mr. Milani on that one. My understanding was that given the rounding, issue with not being able to have half licenses in an election district, this would not raise the overall number of licenses. But I would have to defer to Mr. Milani on that one.
Yes, delegate, what it would do is it would add in District 4 the 3 additional potential licenses. And in the 3rd district, it would do the same thing. But I would tell you that District 3 is much probably, I would think that's going to get there anyway because of the Maple Lawn in that area. The 4th district, I haven't seen growth out here in years. And quite honestly, there's not many places you could put it. So potentially you're correct. It could add 3 in each district, but I would say the 3 in District 4 is kind of a reach. Where in District 3, I would say that when you update population, you basically front loaded them. You gave it to them a couple years early, but they would get there eventually.
Would it be possible to put the map up so we can see where we're adding those? Because District 3,
I think it's 3 and 4.
3 and 4, but District 3, does that include, it includes Route 40 and 70, but I don't know how far into Route 40 that goes, but does anybody have that map?
Abby, can
Looking
you?
for that, Mr. Chair. Could I interject? This is really
Yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. So, when we first looked at this bill, we realized that because you'd be dividing it up, as Senator Hester said, that in each district, we'd probably lose the availability of about 5 or 6 licenses, because each district, when you round down, you lose more. And so we're adding a few more also. It's a back of the napkin calculation, but it almost works out. And we're not fully subscribed anyway. At this time, we were below those numbers. We weren't going to have people lose licenses from 71 down to 66 at the time, but certainly that would reduce the availability of them. And so it would sort of shift the availability from some of the election districts to the possibility of having them in the other 2, which I know Mr. Milani thinks that they'll never be out there, but I've watched the development of Howard County. If we allow it, it might happen in sometime down the road. But I do think ultimately it's not an equivalence, because they're not the same thing, but it will work out about the same.
I misspoke. It's actually 4 and 5, the election district. It's 4 and 5 are the ones that are close.
Delegate Trust, that was sort of for your benefit because you were asking that question. So I don't know if that was clear or not.
Well, the rounding error goes down, but then as time goes by, each of those, they'll each pass they eventually move up, right? I mean, they eventually,
as population grows, sure.
Right.
But if you were to look at it right now, what we would be doing is reducing the number of available licenses in some election districts because of rounding at a greater rate than the round occurred county-wide. But we would also be, if we take these amendments, we would be allowing for a few more in 2 election districts. And I'm not going to try to say the numbers other than Jack. I'm going to let that go. Don't worry about it.
District 3 has.
I'm sorry, Senator Lamb. I'm sort of talking out of turn here. I just wanted to put that perspective.
That's okay.
District 3 Senator does have a license available right now. They have 3 and they can have 4 currently.
So that would allow them to have 6, up to 6.
2 more. Yeah, 2 more they could have.
So that's 3 districts that can have more.
No, I'm sorry. I misspoke before. It's 3 and 4. District 3 is calling for 4.18, and they currently have 3. And District 4 is calling for 3.51, and they have 3. So I think that District 3 would be probably more likely to pick up population than District 4. Much more likely.
Okay, well, those are my concerns, is about adding licenses. I appreciate your explanation, Delegate Eversole.
Delegate Atterbury has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question, I don't need to know numbers, but thank you, Delegate Eversole. So if it allows more licenses in those districts, are there going to be more concentration in certain areas, or does the other Senator Gazzoni's amendment take care of that? Does that make sense? So are there going to be, if you allow more, are there going to be more in certain areas as the development comes?
I think that in District 3, possibly. District 4, I just don't know how you would have concentration, because the areas that are actually zoned are pretty much already there. And I'd like to, I just, unless they start letting people out of, like, agricultural preservation or things of that nature, I don't know how it would ever happen in the far west. But I think in District 3, it's a stronger possibility.
So if I think I understand your question. I from what I'm hearing, it doesn't appear to me that it's going to increase it in any other places. And of course, that would not be something that I was looking for. It'd be contrary to exactly the whole purpose.
Delegate Atterbury, does that address your question? Okay. Senator Hester, you have a question?
I just wanted to clarify about the exception for the larger malls. I mean, if we're worried about concentration, like there's no larger malls in the West. So there's two reasons why there's fewer of these out in the West. And so I would just like to ask my colleagues to consider this as an economic development, option, just so that we don't shut off, any liquor licenses from the West, which is the only two districts right now that are potentially to be shut off. All the other ones, even with, this effort to non-consolidate, you can still add several licenses in all the other ones. The only two districts where you can't add them are in the West. You can still add many more licenses in the East. And this bill tries to address that, and it goes a long way. And I'm just asking for this one small exception so that we don't stymie economic development in the West.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we do have the motion on the table to move forward with this amendment. Why don't will anybody be objecting to this amendment? All right, so why don't we call the roll? Abby, if you can call the roll on this amendment.
Yes, the motion to move Senator Hester's amendment, Senator
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Senator Gazzoni,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark, absent. Delegate Feldmark is absent. Delegate Atterbury,
No.
Delegate Eversole,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
Yes.
Delegate Pendergrass. Delegate Pendergrass is recorded as absent. Delegate Terrassa
No.
and Delegate Watson.
Yes.
We have 5 yeses from the delegation, 2 absent, and 2 no, and 3 yeses on the Senate.
So that amendment passes. Any other discussion on the bill as amended before we take a vote on the bill? All right, seeing none. Abby, can you call the roll? This is on the bill as amended.
Yes, the bill is amended. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Senator Gazzoni,
Yes.
Senator Hester,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark, absent. Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Eversole,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
Yes.
Delegate Pendergrass, still absent. Delegate Tarasa,
Yes.
Delegate Watson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, thank you. So we will submit a letter of support from the delegation for that bill. While we have a quorum right now with the senators here, if we can take a quick vote on the LBIs, I think we're going to try to approach them as a consent calendar, and then we will very quickly move to 10-21. I think we discussed this with some of the members. Delegate Feldmark has. If we're okay with moving with the consent calendar, this is on all the remaining LBIs on the agenda, A through J. We're going to take one vote on all of them.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just to clarify for the public, this means that we are approving these to be considered to be funded, correct?
That is correct. Yes, we are not the funders. You know, the Appropriations Committee on the House side and Budget and Taxation on the Senate side will be taking these recommendations into account.
Thank you.
Sure.
I move the consent calendar, Mr. Chair.
Great.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay. Abby, can you call the roll on the consent calendar?
Yes. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Senator Guzzoni,
Yes.
Senator Hester, Senator Hester,
He
Yes.
says, there we go. All right.
Delegate Feldmark, absent. Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Kittleman,
Yes.
Delegate Novotny,
No.
Delegate Pendergrass, recorded absent. Delegate Tarasa,
Yes.
and Delegate Watson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, great. So let's advance the agenda again. We will now move to Howard County 10-21. This is the Board of Education School Safety Personnel. This is Delegate Atterbury's bill. I see some people in the waiting room, although I'm not sure if they're for this bill or not. If Abby, you can clarify that and if it's appropriate for them to be admitted in.
Yes, they are.
Okay, please do so. And we have, I think we have a prior motion on the bill, so the bill's on the table.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yeah.
say something?
Why don't we just motion it because that was a separate meeting. So can we have a motion on the table? Can we motion to advance this so we can have a discussion at least?
Say that again?
Go ahead, Delegate Atterbury, you motion, is there a second?
Wait, are we unable
don't
to
know
have
what you're
a
asking me
discussion
to
without
do.
a motion?
So there's
This is
a
just
motion.
this is just to bring the bill up for discussion again.
Yes, but do we have to move the bill to do that?
No,
That's what I was
there's
asking
already,
to do.
there's already a motion on the table to move the bill. It was seconded, and so there's already a motion on the table. So I don't think
Okay.
we need to do that
All
again.
right, motion and seconded, so we can go ahead with discussion. Go ahead, Delegate Atterbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So all of that may have been moved because I'm going to ask to hold the bill one time and vote it next week. I spoke to Senator Guzzoni last night, and so we are working on an amendment that we need time to get together that I think the delegation will be happy with. So I want to thank Senator Guzzoni for working on that. And I also just received an amendment from Delegate Ebersol as well. So I want to loop that into the amendment conversation. And I would ask that if anybody has any amendments or suggestions that they would like an amendment, if they could please get that to me by the end of the week so we can figure it out. Senator Guzzoni, do you want to say something? No?
No.
Does anyone want to?
I got to get to the floor actually, so.
Okay. So basically I want to hold it so Senator Guzzoni and I can work on this amendment.
Okay. Any other?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Delegate Ebersol.
Thanks. First of all, I really want to give credit to Darren Moriarty for trying to put something together that I described rather loosely to him earlier in the week. And I think he did a good job. I think there's a couple things that I didn't make clear, and I'm looking forward to talking to Delegate Atterbury and Senator Gazzoni and anybody else about how to add some things to make it a little more robust.
I'm looking forward to speaking with you too, Delegate Ebersol.
Ooh, that's, I don't know.
You could probably do that not on a
voice to me.
All right, Delegate Watson and
Yes,
Delegate Botany.
if we do want to vote on this next week, could I ask that we get the amendments out to us before the morning of, so we have a little time to read and digest them, please? Like as soon as we can.
Okay, so if the sponsors of those amendments can please get those amendments circulated or to Abby and we can get those out as quickly as possible, that'd be great. Delegate Novotny, you had indicated you had a question. Do you want to withdraw that or do you still have a question?
I'll just make a quick statement. I appreciate Delegate Atterbury bringing up this important topic, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. So this bill is held for now. We will revisit it next week. The final bill on the agenda is Howard County 11-21. This is the Commercial Building Excise Tax Board of Education Deferred Maintenance. This is Delegate Atterbury's bill. Do you want to speak to it as the sponsor again?
No, I had asked Chair Feldmark to hold that. So it shouldn't have been on the agenda.
All right, so that bill is held too. There's nothing else on the agenda. So I guess we can entertain a motion to adjourn, and there'll be more information upcoming on the next delegation meeting next week. I believe there's also information that is going to be posted very shortly about the upcoming delegation hearing. These are on bills that are, well, this is our normal hearing that we have usually about a month into session on any statewide bills that people would like to testify about. There's going to be information going up on the website, I believe later today, with details and a link on how people can sign up. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Sounds good. Thank you. Properly moved and seconded. We are adjourned. Thank you.